Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us from around the world. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the second session of our online training, Driving Digital Transformation in Cultural Heritage Institutions. My name is Maria Paula Garcia Mosquera, and I'm the Head of Communications and Partnerships at the International Council on Archives. Building on our session hosted last week, we continue strengthening the knowledge and practical tools needed to support digital transformation across the cultural heritage sector. Your engagement reflects how essential digital readiness has become for our collections, institutions, and communities. Today, we are honored to welcome two distinguished experts whose work has deeply influenced the field of photographic, audiovisual, and digital heritage. Professor Fredrik Truyen is a professor at KU Leuven and director of Digital GLAM, specializing in digitisation, photographic heritage, and metadata for cultural institutions. As a co-founder and former president of Photo Consortium, he has played a key role in advancing digital heritage infrastructures and practices. David Iglésias is head of Department of Photographic and Audiovisual Records at Girona City Council and director of the Postgraduate Diploma in Photographic Archives at the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. He's also former chair of the ICA Photographic and Audiovisual Archives Expert Group and currently serves as president of Photo Consortium. We are delighted to have them with us today. And we look forward to the perspective and practical insights they will share with all of us. A warm welcome as well to those joining us via YouTube. Please feel free to share your questions in the chat box. We will bring them into the discussion later. Before we begin our speakers, Antonella Fresa, Vice President of Photo Consortium, will introduce the themes and framework of this year's program and share more details about the project. So, Antonella, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria Paula. Nice to meet you again for those who were here already in the past session and for those who are coming to this second session of our training program. In this session, we will talk about the impact and transformative power of digital cultural heritage. But before digging into this matter, I would like to give you a few words about the Eureka 3D and Eureka 3D XR initiatives. Next, please. Because this online training program, as those who already participated in the past session, is a joint initiative of the International Council on Archives and the Eureka 3D initiative. I speak about the Eureka 3D initiative because it is made of two projects, one completed on 31st of December 2024, and the next one, Eureka 3D XR, still ongoing. Next, please. Eureka 3D has had the two main directions. One, promotion, training, communication, support, outreach about the quality of 3D digitization. There is a recommendation of the European Commission to the member states to accelerate digitization of cultural heritage in 3D, but 3D digitization is a complex matter, and this needs to be supported by capacity building, documentation, webinars, encounters on quality of 3D. This is something that is done in Eureka 3D through the publication of 3D digitization guidelines, an online course that is available on the Europeana Learning Platform, and the webinars. Everything based on a study that has been paid with the taxpayers' money, coordinated by the Technical University in Cyprus, and at the availability of all the European cultural heritage sector. Next, please. But the second track has been the development, the creation of a data hub, a hub of data about cultural heritage. So a safe storage, a federated authentication and authorization infrastructure, federated with the other services that are available in the scientific sector in Europe, a 3D viewer, and the interoperability with Europeana.eu, as well as, naturally, and consequently, the data space for cultural heritage. Next, please. On the basis of what has been delivered and produced in Eureka 3D, the Eureka 3D XR project started in February 2025. It will last until July 2026, and it is using the 3D contents that are stored safely on the 3D data hub, Eureka 3D data hub, to offer extended reality experiences of cultural heritage in the digital world. To do this, we are developing 5 open source digital tools that are integrated with the data space for cultural heritage, 3 use cases in extended reality scenarios, and new contents, plus a program of capacity building, out of which the webinar of today. Next, please. The 5 new tools are used to create augmented reality experiences and to deliver these experiences through mobile devices to the users. Another tool is developing the reconstruction of 3D cultural heritage that is documented in the archives but not existing anymore in the physical analogic world through the use of artificial intelligence algorithms that are trained with the data from archives and the delivery through a studio to the final user. And finally, another tool that is extracting from frescoes and 3D representation of an historical cave the avatar of monks. Please, next, please. These are the 3 application scenarios. In Girona, the reconstruction of the medieval walls, the portions that are no more there and that are available through the reconstruction made by AI. In Bibract Archaeological Center, a narrative using augmented reality to tell about the hidden side of the site. And in Paphos, at the San Neophytos and Glistra, the new life of San Neophytos and his monks living in the ancient medieval time in the cave. Next, please. I would like to invite you to consider to join us online or in presence on the 29th of January, where we will demonstrate the results of Eureka 3D and Eureka 3D XR in Girona. Next, please. I have finished anyway. So the floor is yours, and good luck with this second training event of our training program.
Fred, your mic is off, so if you can activate it. We can see your slides. Ah, perfect. Could you?
Okay. So
perfect. We hear you. Perfect. Thank you.
So, hello. I want to talk a bit about the major challenges that we face in heritage institutions when we look at digital transformation. Certainly, when it regards to important technologies such as 3D or AI that require quite some effort and preparation. When we look at the digital workflows that many institutions are now implementing, and it had a different pace in archives, libraries, and museums, depending on the complexities. We see that many have implemented digitization first, so digitization workflow, but that it is not often already connected to the core work processes in the institutions. So often the digital workflow is a bit separate of the activities of preservation, of communication, of visitor guidance, etc. So that is certainly still something that many organizations are still working on. And actually, it would require a redesign of several functions in the heritage institution. We actually completed last year a major revision of all the functions in the university libraries here at KU Leuven last year. And this forces many institutions to focus on capacity building of their staff, of retraining of the staff, and trying to build on new competencies, working together with consultants on training and retraining of personnel. These things are going on. What still is less in the focus of many organizations, to my assessment, and also to if we look at surveys that we did on this issue, is the realization that the digitized objects will become assets of the core functions of the institution. They will become, in 50 years, the collections that you are now digitizing and the digital 3D objects that you are making will be part of the heritage that you manage. They will become part of the heritage, a 21st century heritage. And this means that, in fact, instead of having them somewhere on a server or on a SharePoint, they should be in your collections management system. They should have a collection number, and they should be part of what you manage and preserve as an institution. And this, for me, is something that we need to do a lot now in training of heritage professionals, is making a better understanding of the life cycle management of digital solutions. And often 3D solutions are now introduced as one-off projects that once the project ends, do not have a clear life cycle management and maintenance. And this is something we still need to work on. But, and that means that to summarize, there are three important actions that really are needed and well known to a certain extent: capacity building, asset management, and integrated digital lifecycle management. But this is all still, if I go back to my slide, this is all still an inside-out approach where you start from your digitized collections and you then think, how am I going to use that to communicate with the audience, to put it on the website, and to reach out to the visitors. What we need now, and we see this happening already a lot, I think there is already more than 15 years crowdsourcing activities in a lot of heritage institutions. The other side is a participatory model where you start from the heritage community, from the audiences, and try to think what the heritage means for them, and try to build your institutional work on the basis of co-creation with these stakeholders. And when we try to implement that kind of workflows, where you start with workshops, where you give a voice to participants, you need not only to train your staff, but also to train the audience. You need to train the stakeholder community. You need to empower them by giving them certain skills that will allow them to engage with the heritage, to contribute, to discuss, and to take ownership. And this requires a totally new set of softwares. It's not a classical web portal. It's not your collections database or collections management system. It is a community management system that you then need. So that's a software that can get inspiration from what many cities have implemented for community management in the context of urbanization plans, and giving a democratic access to stakeholders, a vote to the communities to contribute. And for me, when you organize that, when you train the audience, when you use empowering digital tools to give them access directly for co-creation and co-curation, then you will get a sustainable digital development of your heritage. And then you know that these communities will help you in making sure that you can continue your work. And that is what I would call an outside-in approach, which changes a bit these three aspects of capacity building, asset management, and life cycle management, so that it requires an adapted approach there. Now, and you see that the workflow starts at another entry point, starts with a good understanding of the heritage community, and then only do a requirements analysis, etc. This connects a bit to the theories that our colleague Pierluigi Sacco promotes a lot, that we are now in a space of culture 3.0, where we start with a kind of community-based practices and no longer stick to the classic web model of pushing out information, which is a kind of industrialization of heritage. And this means that you want to get this motor running. So consider this is a kind of electric engine, and the outside in wants to drive the inside out and vice versa. And organizing these kind of connected workflows will really give you a strategic digital dimension. And of course, we need to think now, how can, for example, AI help there? Because AI is very strong in human-computer interfacing designs, so it could help to have tools to generate that kind of interactivity. Now, keep always in mind that strong innovation is based on a model where you try to understand which of the current practices you do not have the ambition to continue. Because if you just add 3D and AI to your current practice, it becomes very expensive. And we know all that heritage institutions have limited and pre-planned budgets. Here in Flanders, every 5 years, you have a fixed budget of subsidies. And so there is not much room to add new things. You can only do this if you stop doing outdated practices that maybe have no future. And this means that before engaging in implementing real digital strategies, you need to have a phasing out plan. which part of your workforce will you need to retrain? What are the activities that they will stop doing? And this is for me a very important message because it's often forgotten. And once you take the courage to engage with your staff in that kind of discussions, then we're talking, then it becomes a difficult and worthwhile effort. I want to conclude in the next couple of minutes that are left for me to give you one example where we tried to make a complete chain. It's also a project that, such as Eureka 3D, contributed to the Digital Europe program, to the Europeana environment. And it focuses, in fact, on the fact that when we looked at Europeana, a lot of the metadata that were pushed by the thousands of institutions that contribute actually through about 30 aggregators, 30, 40 aggregators, that we see that many of these metadata are very scarce, sometimes really outdated, and they stem from old library and museum catalogs. So they lack finesse, and this hampers the usability of this portal. And what is worse, the outdated language is often not fit for these times. It is full of stereotypes, often derogatory language. And we try to see, can we do something about the metadata? Of course, we will never touch to the sources, and at the aggregation level, you don't have access to the sources, so it's not something that you want to attack. But the metadata, yes, once you put all these collections, these digital collections with their data online, you become actually a publisher. You are bound to legislations for publishers, and this entails ethical responsibilities. And so there is no doubt there that you cannot just put any language out to school children, to visitors worldwide. From my students, I learned that, for example, in Asia, the Europeana collections are hugely popular, even discussed in social media. So there is a lot of attention of collections, and collections, of course, that then are looked at from another viewpoint. And so we tried to make first a typology of possible bias in these metadata based on academic literature, but also on studies of Europeana data. And then we developed with workshop methodologies new vocabularies where we tried to address these issues by working with heritage communities. For example, on African communities, we worked with second and third generation Congolese citizens in Belgium, but also with the University of Lubumbashi in Africa, and with interviewers that went there to capture in loco these vocabulary issues. And hence, the improvement and the better accessibility and the enrichment of these metadata increases the value of your digital collections. So here's some background on the typology of bias that we used. We focused on the metadata level. So in the next project, we will look at the relation between the visual level and the descriptions. So because sometimes the bias is in the interplay between image and text. Here a list of the kinds of misrepresentation that we wanted to address in these vocabularies. We could rely on some published vocabularies of minority communities, of colonial languages, etc. And then it's not only so that we created the vocabularies together with representative organizations from the communities, we also made contracts with these kind of organizations, like we did have an experience before in the Weave project that we did with Photo Consortium, and where we had a lot of experience about managing community work. But also the validation of the vocabularies that we now created is done with these communities, using a tool that maybe our colleague Eirini Caldelli, who from the National Technical University of Athens, who developed all these tools, will address in the next session in this series. Citizen Heritage is a kind of elaborate crowdsourcing and crowd engagement tool that we used for this work. And this way, we do not only remove unwanted data from metadata in collections, but also enrich the metadata with much more precise contributed descriptions. And this increases just the interest in the collection. So we see an increase in interactions on these enriched collections. It's also integrated on Europeana, where you will find, when you click on this debias icon, behind the word, you will get contextualized information and a link to the vocabularies. We published some recommendations that you can find on the debias website. If you just type in debias Europeana, you will find the portal of the project and the recommendations. I'll have to cut short here because David also needs to give his contribution, so I will stop sharing here on this last slide with some recommendations for heritage institutions. I'll stop the sharing and
So thank you, Fred, for this inspiring talk. And now I will talk about the digital transformation of an archive, a photographic and audiovisual archive, that is CRDI, that is the Center for Image Research and Dissemination in the City Council of Girona, a city in the north of Catalonia, a small, medium city, 100,000 inhabitants. So the first thing you should know is the dimension of the archive. We manage a big collection because we take care not just of the archive of the institution and of the region, but also the archive of the media, of the newspapers, TV station, radio stations, etc. So this is why we have these big numbers you see in the slide. Just for example, these 3 million images, photographs. But what I would like to focus now is the importance of these collections, the context, the historical context of these collections, because we have images represented since 18th century with engravings, since nowadays with the digital stuff. But what is important to be aware is that photography is 1.5 century. It started in mid-19th, but there was a previous technique, the engraving. So the will to explain the wall in images is something that exists from the 18th century, and we have these books of Romanticism in 19th century, travel books 18th century, all these magazines, illustrated magazines, etc. So there was a image culture there, and photography emerged in the middle of this. That's why, for example, as you see on the slide, you have a photographic image that is represented as an engraving in a magazine. because the consumer wanted this. They were used to see images like this. And this is important because we have our photographic archive, but mainly the images are represented in prints, are printed in magazines, are printed in books, and mainly when the photomechanical techniques started at the end of 19th century. So when you have an interest in a photographic archive, in an image archive, I think we should consider the library because our images are represented there. And this is the culture of the image of this period. So our archive, our historical image archive, belongs to this context. So when we digitize image, we go to another context, very different, the digital culture. The digital archive nowadays is in the middle of this slide. I'm sorry because it's in Catalan, but the terminology is very similar to image, so I think to English, so I think you understand. But we are in the middle of this, and we need, for example, to interact with a website, with apps. You have possibilities to be connected with augmented reality, virtual reality. We can participate in digital art. We need technology for preservation, for sustainability, for authenticity. We can be linked to robotics, to the metaverse using 3D holograms, etc. Also, we can provide content for video games or for the creative industry. And mainly, we have the AI, this technology that is transforming completely our archive. So we need to navigate in the middle of all this. So you can imagine that when you take an image of the archive that belongs to this wall, and you go to the current wall, many things changes. It's not just digitization. It's not just transforming what is the material of the photography. Is that now you are connected in a space that is plenty of opportunities, but also there are many challenges. So I will focus on this challenge, how we work in this transformation. And this is something very concrete. We start with digitization, providing semantic content, using AI, digitizing 3D, opening our archives through our catalogs through APIs, and making people participating through crowdsourcing. And when we work with all these, we always need to start with something, with a pilot, and that's why European projects are so useful, because you are part of a consortium where there are archives, museums, but also universities, private companies, etc. So you are able to develop something that is consistent, and is something that then it's a starting point for an institution. And then from this you can transform your institution. So this is something that I would like to explain. So for example, when we started in 2012 digitizing, that was part of a European project that was Europeana Photography. Actually, in our archive, we started digitizing in the 1990s, so a long time ago. But when we start this project, we realized the importance of doing scientific digitization, and that is to have a knowledge of everything that is related to image quality. We are transforming something that is forever, and then, as Fred mentioned, we will need to manage this digital archive. So we need to do a work that is feasible. So like every project, you need a standard, you need to have a best practices, or develop a best practices, and from this you create your own methodology, you do a pilot, and then you can start working. And this is what happened. after you have digital image, you want to connect the image outside. You need interoperability. You need to be able to be in different platforms, etc. So this is why it's so important to think in semantic content. And I like the idea that is represented in the image, in this cube on the slide, because you need to work on different layers. It's not that you transform your archive and you are semantic. No, it's just you need to start from the beginning and identifying data, then creating a platform, and then providing the technology for this platform in order to be semantic, and then creating the conditions to be searchable, semantically searchable, etc. So it's a long way, and we need to start from the beginning. So we think this as a journey where we start having a structured and standardized data. Then you work with unique universal encodings for each data based on namespace. And for vocabularies, you specified your terminology. This is the main idea. And so you start transforming your archive to be semantic. And something very simple. Here you have an example of Europeana where it says that Les Miserables is written by Victor Hugo. No? So this idea of triplets, no? How is created, and if you go to what is the base of this, is that you need to identify every term and also the predicate. So I took an example of our archive, and of course we have an image with an URI, we have an author that has its own URI in BIAF, in this vocabulary, and then we have the metadata, and a standard metadata from Dublin Core, that is the one of the photographer. So yes, we can start, we can create our triplets. So if you focus now on the metadata, what is important is to consider that even if we belong to the wall of culture, of heritage, and we have our standards, like ISAG and EID for archives, MARC, ISBD, IACR for libraries, but we need to be aligned with the industry. What does the industry propose for metadata? What does Nokia, Adobe, etc.? So what they propose is XFTIF, is IPTC, is XMP, is Dublin Core inside XMP, etc. So our work is to be aligned with this, because our images will travel on the cloud, so we will lose control, and they need this information to be to survive in the digital world. So our catalogs need to be mapped to the tags that provide the industry. That's Adobe, Canon, Nokia, Sony. These are the important companies that decide on this. So at the end you have an image with all this information, author, title, keywords, Creative Commons, etc., etc., etc. And all this metadata can be seen everywhere because you are aligned to the industry. So this image can travel. It has all the information that is needed to go outside the archive. So after this, after the metadata, you need to focus on vocabularies, because as we said, the terms need to have an identifier. So we start on this also with Europeana photography, and we focus on the terminology on photography, but then we map this with AIT, the Getty vocabulary, because I think it's very useful. It makes completely sense to fit an existing vocabulary. It could be Library of Congress, it can be Getty, but this is I think the good way to proceed. So now we mapped everything with AIT, and we use AIT mainly for themes and of course for everything related to photography. But sometimes we realize in another project like European Sport, AIT is not enough. Because if you go to something that is very specific, like sports, maybe it's not in IAT. So you can fit IAT, yeah, but you can use also Wikidata. Wikidata is another very good possibility for vocabularies. So you create your own terminology in Wikidata, as it happened in this project that, as the name says, it was focused on a sports content, a sports archive in our case. So from this you can create. And Wikidata can be used, as you see in the image below, for everything that is local. For example, a photographic gallery that is not in BF, that is not in these international terminologies, you can create it. So you have an identifier. So these have now a semantic value. And the same for geographical names. So you have the geonames, where millions of geographical names are included and can be used for you. So here is an example. Some thematic keywords, some people, local people, and some names, place names, all with an identifier, because we use different vocabularies for this. And then this is useful if you go to a platform that is semantic, like Europeana, for example. This is it's one of our register in Europeana is in Catalan. Here you see the possibilities for multilingualism. Now in this case it's translated to English, but what is really good to know is that when you go there, you transform your catalogs to RDF, to semantic representation, using the specific standard of Europeana, that is EDM. Then it must be said that semantic search is working, maybe it's not always working, let's say, but anyway, you have the representation of your semantic values, and you have the possibilities of using different vocabularies because they are assumed by Europeana. What the idea of this is that you work this way, but probably you don't have the technology for semantic search, but you can connect to a general platform like Europeana, where this is already prepared, and so it makes sense. It makes sense to work this way because you can benefit from this technology. Here are an example of our collection that is in Europeana, and when you are in a platform like this and that provide APIs, then things happens. In this case, that was some years ago, a man from Slovenia created a cultural map. So they took metadata of our collection in Europeana, and then he geolocated all the images in this cultural map. So this is good in the sense that the archive is widely used internationally, because there is the potential for this. Another important topic is the crowdsourcing. As Fred said, it's crucial that we engage an audience, that there is people that participates from the cultural institutions. So you have a very big archive, you need help. You need help, you have the technology, you are ready to call for help, but first, what's more important is to contact with neighbors, people that can go physically there. You can organize workshops, hackathons, whatever. But next step is to do the same online. This is what happened in this European project, 50s in Europe Kaleidoscope, where there were different initiatives, innovative initiatives, I would say. And here you have an example that they created this resource where you are able to upload your images, and people could tag your images using terminology. And these images that are local had an extra value, an extra meaning when they are used in this context where we wanted to explain 50s in Europe, in different countries, and in our case was a dictatorship, Spain in 50s. So it's a good representation on how was Spain at that period. Anyway, the important here is to realize that we use crowdsourcing to document our images. Then we start with AI and automation, processes of automation that's close to AI. And related to automation, in a WIF project, for example, there was a startup that was Keynote, linked to NTUA, the National Technical University of Athens, that they developed this tool that was really efficient. You have your captions, your text, and from this, connected to vocabularies, your own vocabulary or IIT or whatever, and connected to this, you could abstract the keywords. So that's something that was automatic, and not with the software, because we have our own software. We are working this way. Nowadays, this is possible, but the good thing is that 4 or 5 years ago, we start doing this in a pilot in a European project. We also worked with image reverse search. Now it's very useful because you go to Google and you can find your images from the images you upload. But it's something very useful for archives. We need this kind of tools. And we started this many years ago because, you have a negative, you have a print that is the draft of this negative. Then you have the final image, the commercial image, and even you can have other negatives that are exactly the same or very close to the same. So you need these connections, and in a big archive, it's completely necessary to count on these kind of tools. Otherwise, you cannot make these connections, and these connections are very important in an image archive. In the same project that I mentioned before, the 50s in Europe, the Kaleidoscope, we did a pilot. We worked on the creation of using AI of different concepts related to the period. And for this, we selected some concepts like fashion or like entertainment personalities. And we use images from archives and we train the machine. And from this, we were able to put image in context. This was something quite experimental, but it was good in the sense that we understood the methodology to use AI. We also use AI as something experimental when we hire Pilar Rosado, that is a researcher at the university. He created a kind of image vocabulary. So the algorithms selected some patterns in the image, many artworks, and then you are able to represent this image in a different way that we are used to. It's not the categories we have in mind when we think in a painter, etc. If the categories that the categories that the machine, the software provides. So we tried with photography, with something very basic, with portraits, with landscapes, etc. The same with another company, Talia Stampa. Actually, they proposed a presentation of a collection from different points of view, associating images, considering the content, the form, the lights, etc. So it's a creative way to go and to navigate in an archive. But the main thing for AI is the software we use nowadays. We are in this process of including this software. So we are selecting functionalities and including this in our software. And nowadays, the main thing is identification of people and brands, geotagging, audio text conversion, tag detection, keyword generation, extraction of content, audio video restoration, quality control, etc. And last, the 3D digitization. The project was already mentioned. The idea that we have a methodology to work on 3D, we have this infrastructure, and we have the possibility to show the results. So this is what Eureka 3D provides. We did some photogrammetry to digitize our collection, but what is more important for archives is that from now, with our documents, our photographs, our maps, our records, textual records, we are able to recreate the heritage. In this case, we are focused on the walls of Girona, and with AI, we create these volumes, and then we will have the experience using a specific app that is being developed for this. So thank you very much, and I think it's time now for questions.
Thank you very much to our speakers, Fred and David. I think your presentations were super inspiring. And just to launch a very big topic of discussion, indeed there is a question. I also added it in our chat if you want to look at it. The question is, how authenticity of digital cultural heritage is impacting the transformation of cultural heritage institutions. The advent of AI is changing the situation, and we are often exposed to contents that may not be original. So may the questioning of authenticity of digital heritage, including images, 3D representation, and all the information provided in the metadata, represent a concern for the commitment of cultural heritage institutions, and how the authority of cultural heritage institutions in the digital world can be preserved for the benefit of users, students, researchers, cultural tourists, and all the communities. Please feel free to take the floor with your reflections on this rather important and vast topic.
Yeah, maybe if I can add something, Valentina. So certainly thanks for the question. So I think it's a very, very interesting question that goes to the heart of the matter. There are two things. We have identifiers and we have descriptions. And I think the first and foremost thing where heritage institutions need to play a role is in the identifiers, is in the controlled lists where an identification needs to take place. And of course, in everything that is representation, description, there is this problem of fake media, fake data. The question, where does optimization of the image stop, and we talk about alteration of the image. So these are very deep technical questions. But I think first and foremost, heritage institutions and also the governance that they represent should take hold of the identifiers. I give you one example. We tend to use the Getty AAT reference for a lot of authority data. A large part of what is described are European holdings, but they are in private US hands. For me, that is really a matter of a discussion where within Europe we need European identifiers of European heritage. Just like in Flanders, we need Flemish identifiers for Flemish heritage. That's the first claim to ownership And that can then lead to control of authenticity, because you can control the use of your identifier. But I think there is some work to do there. That's my opinion, at least. Maybe David also can.
Yes, I think authenticity is a main concern for archives, not just for photographic archives, for all the archives. And when the records are part of the archives, this is something that is under control. We have the identifiers, and we have all the actions that we make. We work on in order to be safe, in order to be sure that is authentic. So the difficulty now comes from the outside, because now it's becoming more difficult. Photography lies since the beginning. You find images that are created that are completely fakes in the 19th century. But there is an evidence there. So it's normally you can identify this. Instead, nowadays with AI, it's becoming more difficult, but it must be said that also the industry is working this way. So JPEG Committee, for example, they are providing tools in order to give more information of the origin of the data created. So when we are able to analyze this metadata provided by the industry, then we are safe, in the sense that we have all the information needed to understand how the image was created. So this is a process that started not many years ago, but now is something that will become something useful for archives, because we need this kind of tools. Otherwise, it's impossible for us to certificate the authenticity of the records.
Thank you very much, Fred and David, for your comments about this. I am a bit mindful of the time, so I would like to give the mic back to Maria Paula and to the colleagues of ICA to conclude this session of today.
So, knowing that we are in our second session, I would like to thank again everybody that has joined us through our YouTube channel. Next week, on Wednesday at the same time, meaning 3 p.m. Paris time, we will close this cycle of online sessions with our third keynote presentation. So please connect again to the ICA YouTube channel to join us in this final and closing session of this series that we have organized with the collaboration of Eureka 3D XD project and Photo Consortium. David and Professor Truyen, thank you so much for your interventions. This was a really insightful and fruitful conversation with the two of you. And we would like to then invite the participants to join us in the second part of this interactive session. And again, thank you for joining us today. Bye.